getting increasingly hard to talk about the things that are going on in the news every day, you guys. Because you know that if it's in the news and they're focusing on it a lot, the point of that is to keep your attention away from whatever else is actually going on that's definitely more important. But it's also twofold. It's not just to flash shiny things at you and get you to look in the wrong direction. It's also to fill up your short-term memory with a bunch of crap. A bunch of psyops, false flags, hoaxes, and BS. So that you'll never put things into perspective. You'll never look at history, look at the grander scale of what's actually going on and how all these things fit together. Check out this book. This is called The Plutonium Files. This is all about all of the on-the-record testing they did of radiation and chemical agents on people back during the Manhattan Project and the Cold War. These are some of the victims that were injected with radiation. And a lot of this stuff has come out, but a lot of people in this country have no idea how extensive the history is of our government using its own citizens as unwilling test subjects in all manner of science experiments. In fact, that history goes back even, World War I and even before that? So, a long dedicated history. This actually happened. The government will feed children radioactive oatmeal. That's what the government does. There was this school in Massachusetts. It was the first permanent school for the feeble-minded, the Fernald School, and they used the kids that were there and the people that were thrown away there. This is the kind of place where they would put anybody, basically, back during eugenics. They would just throw people in there to forget about them. Poor people, alcoholics, people who were considered feeble-minded, trouble kids, immigrant kids they just didn't want to have around. I mean, just anybody, really. And they would throw people in there. And back during the Cold War era and prior to that, they were testing all this radioactive stuff on people, and they went to this school because they had gone, there was a long history of them using this people in this school as test subjects, unwitting test subjects. The Atomic Energy Subcommittee approved the use of trace amounts of radioactive calcium to feed the boys in the science club. Yeah, this is what they did. Scientists at MIT went to the school and pretended they were going to start a science club. And these poor kids who got thrown away in this horrible place where they wouldn't even teach them basic skills like how to read felt all special because they were chosen for the special science club where they would get to go to ball games and get presents like little watches and stuff. All they had to do is every day that the scientists came, every morning for a certain set period of time, they would have to clean their bowls. They would give them oatmeal with milk and they would have to eat every last drop of it. These scientists even sent home letters to the parents that tried to make it sound like this was going to be a really awesome opportunity that was good for them. And never once mentioned radiation was being fed to their children. All they had to do was give a blood, a urine, a stool sample, and sometimes a spinal fluid sample, and they got to be part of a special science club. In 1998, because this went on for years, they denied it for a really long time, and in 98, Quaker Oats and MIT were forced to pay $1.85 million to 45 of these kids that were fed radioactive laced oatmeal. And the Commonwealth of Massachusetts also had to pay another $676,000 to 27 participants, more claims still pending. So I just think it's a really good analogy for the way the government sees the people. And if they would feed radioactive oatmeal to children, what wouldn't they do? You know, back in, 95, Bill Clinton apologized for this stuff. And every time I see that clip where he comes out and tries to kind of nervously laugh off this disgusting history of the government doing these kinds of horrible things.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
I see that, and every time I watch it, I think to myself, if that's what Bill Clinton was apologizing for then, am I going to be alive for the time when the next president is put up on stage to apologize for the establishment for whatever's going on right now? There's some kind of weird bias that the government has this long, decades-long history of horrible human experimentation in almost every aspect you can think of, from mind control to, chemical warfare agents on terminal cancer patients. I mean, it's horrible. It's bad. And that's the stuff we know about. But there's this bias like, oh, somehow that stopped at some certain magical point and it's just not going on at all today. Come on. Please. We got to wake up to that.